a few months now, I've been on the hunt for a really good medieval fantasy game. That statement is mostly true. Honestly, originally this video was titled Most Anticipated Skyrim Alternatives. Since then though, I've realized I need to stop comparing every medieval fantasy to Skyrim because it leaves me closed off to a lot of new experiences. I'm gonna yap for a minute, so skip to the timestamp on screen if you just want to get to the game recommendations. I recently tried to play Dragon's Dogma, a game that was highly recommended in my Skyrim Alternatives video, and I see where all the hype is, I just couldn't really get into it, and I was getting held back by such minor things. The camera feels a bit far, the controls aren't what I like in a game like this, the combat at times feels a bit janky and I can't dodge how I want, just crazy stuff like that. Then I tried The Witcher 3, another game you hear constantly when asking for Skyrim alternatives, or medieval fantasy games, and it was pretty much the same thing. I understood why these games were so highly regarded, I just couldn't really get into them, despite them having pretty much everything I like in these types of games. Medieval, check. Fantasy with magic, check. Cool creature design, fun combat, open world, all check. The problem was that I was trying to play Skyrim without actually playing Skyrim. And by the way, I'm talking about modded Skyrim. I don't know anyone who actually praises vanilla Skyrim in 2024. That is just, it's madness. The game came out in 2011. It's an old game. Anyway, all of that, plus a quick mental breakdown about why I'm not enjoying these games later, led me to this. What are my most anticipated medieval fantasy games without Skyrim in mind? And if you like this and videos like this, don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe, because I'd love to do more videos like this. I'm trying to talk about more medieval fantasies type stuff, because that's what I'm really interested in right now. But anyway, first off, we have Chrono Odyssey, an open world MMORPG that looks beautiful. I'm not gonna lie, I am not a huge fan of MMORPGs. I prefer a good solo game with a good story. I have friends, I promise, that's what Minecraft and like COD zombies and stuff is for, but typically I prefer playing through a game with good storytelling, or at least somewhat decent storytelling if it has really good gameplay. The first time I watched the trailer for this game, I didn't even recognize that it was an MMORPG. There was just so many scenes of the player by themselves fighting monsters and things in this beautiful looking game. And it hits all of the marks for me, all the stuff I talked about in the intro. Plus stunning graphics and creature design, I'm sold, I'm good. And the story actually sounds pretty interesting. The player has the ability to control space-time with this cool magic, and I'm assuming that ties into the war that's going on against the Void, which is a very cool name. It does seem hard to tell how big the world actually is based on the gameplay alone, but it's described on the website as endless, so hopefully that means big enough to encourage exploration, but not too big that it feels empty. The world building also feels pretty good. While script writing me was writing? I don't know. He noticed the amount of lore this game seems to have. There's guardians that protect the lands under the guidance of the Great Ones, undead who've been contaminated by the Void, I think different factions of people. It sounds great. So far it seems like the story won't be an issue here, and the gameplay looks no different. The combat and magic seem awesome, and it seems like there's a pretty wide range of weapons and abilities that the player can use. At one point while watching the trailer with my friend Cheesecake, you guys remember Cheesecake?
I can do it so quick. You fucking pushed me out.
That was a zombie, you clown. He said it kind of reminded him of God of War combat, and then the player did this. And we both realized that is literally an attack from God of War. Not to say that they stole it, it's just a pretty sensible fantasy attack to add to a game. But if it takes any inspiration or reminds me of God of War at all, I'll be happy. That game is some of my favorite combat of all time. But with all these weapons and abilities, I am left slightly concerned. The thing that stops me from playing a lot of MMORPGs is the MMORPG part of the game. I just can't get into a game where you have like 50 abilities all taking up keys all over your keyboard, and you need to fight certain bosses in like a huge group because you just can't beat them alone, because either the difficulty or that's just how the game is made. I don't know, I just don't super enjoy that. I also don't like when the game kind of just goes on forever. If the story is never ending, it doesn't feel very purposeful. Another big thing I experienced in MMORPGs is the need to grind and kill one boss or enemy over and over just to get a rare drop that will be used for the direct next boss or the next mission or whatever it is. And I just don't really like that process personally. I like to grow and improve over the course of the adventure, and maybe I just haven't played the right ones, but MMORPGs don't really feel like they do that. So I am still super hyped for this, but I'm also extremely worried whether or not I'll actually like it when it releases. Speaking of which, I don't think this game currently has a release date. I hear a lot of people saying 2024, which sounds nice, but for a game of this scale, I don't care if it takes another year or so to release, 2 years even. I just hope that it's a good game. And moving on to the next game, almost a no-brainer for me, Crimson Desert. Yes, this was originally a Skyrim alternative for me, but hey, again, no more comparing anything to Skyrim, right? Since that video, I feel like I haven't stopped talking about it. I don't know if I've mentioned it in videos, but I definitely yap so much about it to my friends. It just looks so good. It looks like a really good game. And although I talked about it in the Skyrim alternatives video, I'm still super excited for it out of the scope of Skyrim alternatives. I won't go too in depth because I did cover this previously, but now I get to talk about this without that unnamed medieval fantasy game in mind. The game seems insane. It has amazing visuals, the combat seems super fun and fast paced, plus the world looks huge. I did find out kind of recently that it is a preset character, which is funny because I mentioned it in the Skyrim alternatives video, but then I left that video thinking you could make your own character for some reason. Not sure why that is, but it is a preset character, which is both good and worrying for me. On one hand, I love a good story game. Last of Us, God of War, Spider-Man. Yes, those are all very typical games and they're all PlayStation exclusives, but they're also very popular in that genre. I love those games because of the characters and the stories that they tell. But on the other hand, one of the things I like in a huge open world game like this is a chance to make my own story with my character at the center of it. With how ambitious this game seems though, I'm definitely gonna give it a play when it releases, and surely this game will be coming out soon. Surely. No, as far as I can tell, this game still has no release date, but a lot of articles think that it'll release in late 2024, which if true is insane because of the amount of things that are set to release this year, but I don't want to get my hopes up too high. As long as it doesn't take as long as GTA 6 to release, and it isn't half-assed, Crimson Desert is gonna take up so much of my time. Alright, next up is a game I've seen a lot of hype for, Black Myth Wukong. This game looks insane, and it's definitely far from the typical European medieval setting that people think of when they hear medieval fantasy, as it's rooted in Chinese mythology, which is awesome. I love that. Somewhat of a tangent, but I've been trying to get back into Ghostwire since I played it a lot when I first got my PS5 and I never finished it. If you haven't heard of it, it's a cool first-person game that's based in Japan, and it features a lot of things from Japanese folklore, mythology? What's the right word for that? I think possibly both. Sorry for the tangent, but overall I'm trying to say that I always think of medieval as your average Skyrim theme, very European, and I haven't really explored other cultures' medieval themes. I'm pretty sure the word medieval does actually refer to European locations specifically, but I still think this counts. That kind of era of time. I don't think you need me to tell me how beautiful this game is, but I'll say it anyway. This game looks so good. Both graphically and thematically, everything looks very intriguing and really makes me want to actually explore the world. I don't think this game is open world, but if you look it up, there's an article that actually says that it is. No idea why, but after reading a very slightly controversial Reddit post, it sounds like it'll be a little closer to God of War, I guess, which is technically an open world, but not in the traditional sense. You can go anywhere all the time, but it's designed to be more linear, and you only tend to revisit areas when the story dictates it. That's what I've seen mostly from like Reddit posts and stuff, but I've also seen YouTubers calling this open world, so what is the truth? But either way, no open world is usually a bummer for me, but not every game needs to have a massive open world to be good. The boss fights and enemies look awesome, their designs are super interesting, and each fight looks very unique. And I'm not gonna lie, it does give me Souls-like vibes, and I'm terrible at Souls games. But if it leans more on the God of War style combat and not Souls-like combat, I think I'll do okay-ish. And my typical issue with Souls games' gloomy atmosphere doesn't seem to be a problem here. It does have a lot of dark areas and dark themes, but it still seems like there's a lot there. I don't know, it just feels different. And I love that this game is rooted in Chinese mythology because that's a culture I haven't explored very much, and it's always fun to see kind of what's there. And I think games in general are a really good way to visually show that. Like I was talking about Ghostwire earlier, I know like the tiniest bit of Japanese mythology, but I believe the game does have all or a lot of real mythology in it, and the few things I did know about, I felt like I was actually noticing. And everything else I just got to learn about in the game's very extensive descriptions for things. As for this game, it's inspired by Journey to the West, which I think is a pretty popular story, judging by all the comments of people saying they've heard it a bunch of times, but still love seeing it told in this game. And once again, you're playing as a preset character, Sun Wukong, I believe. I hope I'm getting the name right because this is rooted in real mythology, but I'm sure a perfectly tempered commenter will let me know if I got it wrong. But yeah, what more can I say? The game looks amazing. And we have an honorable mention before we get to the two final things that I'm most hyped for. We have Avowed. I didn't want to give this a whole section of the video because I did just make a full video about this. Avowed looks awesome. I almost compared it to unnamed medieval fantasy game, but it looks so good. The world building looks great. There's so much I could tell you about it. Visuals, really good. The gameplay looks super fun, kind of fast paced, lots of story there, all that fun stuff. But I have a full video about it, which you can watch, link down in the description below or in one of the cards up there. While you're down there, don't forget to hit like, get subscribed. Thank you. But yeah, I highly recommend watching that video where I go fully in depth with their latest Avowed presentation because it looks great. It genuinely looks like a really fun game that I could sink hours and hours into. All right, honestly, the only reason this next game is on the list is because I haven't made a full video about it yet, somehow. I say that not because I'm not hyped for it, but because it's such an obvious choice. Dragon's Dogma 2 is practically on everyone's medieval fantasy RPG list. Oh my god, I should have like a counter for how many times I've said medieval fantasy. Scriptwriting me, please give me some other words to say. But anyway, anyway, there's not too much I can say that countless others haven't already said, but really I am insanely hyped for this game, probably more than any other game on this list. But this game is so popular and so highly talked about, and I don't have as much to say about it because of that. I just couldn't give it the #1 spot. But I did mention Dragon's Dogma 1 earlier, and I said that I couldn't really get into it, I wasn't really feeling it, and that is still true. But I think now that I'm fully breaking away from unnamed magic Middle Ages game, thanks script writing me, and Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to be a modern game, not something that came out like 12 years ago. I think this could be one of my favorite games ever, if it makes the necessary changes to keep up with modern titles. That was kind of one of my biggest issues, it was the age of the game. I'm a strong believer that textures and graphics are one of the least important things in a game, but visuals and UI and overall jankiness have become things that I just can't let slide anymore. Like I said earlier, the original Dragon's Dogma was highly recommended to me, and I fully see why, but when I was playing, there are just things in newer games that I can't let go of for long enough to enjoy the game. I'm sure the world and the gameplay and everything are great, but God, I really feel like I'm playing a 12-year-old game when I'm playing that, with the menus and the look of the loading screens, the UI, and just kind of everything. But from what I've seen of Dragon's Dogma 2 so far, it looks like a lot of those issues will be gone. Things look so much cleaner and nicer to look at. The only issue I'm having is using square and triangle, or X and Y, to attack. I really hope that I could remap that, and I know that's like the dumbest thing to nitpick about. I really prefer attacking with the triggers. It just feels a lot better to me. I don't know, I'm sorry. I'm still not a fan of the messy inventory menu. I definitely prefer more of a list view for my menus, with like visuals of whatever the item is off to one side. Alright, really, for real, my last issue, because I'm genuinely hyped as for this game. I don't like pawns. All Dragon's Dogma fans probably just clicked off or something, and I'm sorry. I don't really like companions in these types of games. I like Lydia and Serana, sure, but they felt like a real companion, like someone I was actually adventuring with and getting to know a little bit, which is funny because I don't think Lydia talks that much without mods. But again, we are talking heavily modded. Maybe I didn't play enough, but I didn't know any of my pawns in Dragon's Dogma 1. I was just doing my thing, and then bam, random people on my party. And I know their AI is really good and everything, but damn, if I had the option to just pick one, or even none, I'll do it. And maybe that'll make me weaker in fights, but maybe I'm a stubborn person and that's just what I'm gonna do anyway. But alright, okay, that's all my issues with it. Pretty much everything else, absolute win. One of the things I'm most excited for in Dragon's Dogma 2 is the fact that it releases in March. That is so soon. A game that I'm hyped for that has an actual release date that isn't a decade from now is almost unheard of. I'm gonna be pretty busy in March, having some guests over and such, but I think I will simply let them take my car while I keep playing this. The enemy design, the gameplay, very nice open world, awesome boss fights. This game truly does look perfect. I feel like I could easily sink hundreds of hours into this game if I had the time to do so. I'm actually tempted to do more with this game on the channel if I, and you of course, really like it. Pretty far off from any of the other full-length series I have on the channel right now, but I'm trying to branch out a little bit, trying to play some other games and do some new things. Alright, but last and certainly not least, we have Soulframe. I'll start off by saying yes, this game gives me the same worries that Chrono Odyssey does. It's made by the same people that made Warframe, hence the name if you didn't catch that. And if you don't know about Warframe, it's this like sci-fi MMORPG game that I did actually play a few years back. I had a good time with it, visually very nice, and it was free, which was music to my very broke child ears. But after the novelty of a good-looking free game wore off on me, I realized I wasn't having as much fun, and I was grinding so much. I felt like I was grinding through one space dungeon to get to the next planet's space dungeon, and I didn't have the best grasp on what was actually happening. Luckily, I had some friends who were super into it and kind of told me what was going on, but when I joined them for missions, I felt like I was just mindlessly killing things with them and collecting loot that I didn't understand, then going back to my ship, and I was too disinterested in grinding harder to customize that ship, and it was kind of just a loop of that. Something I will say though is the game had a lot of love put into it, had updates consistently, and developers who actually listen to their fan base, which unfortunately is something we can't take for granted these days. I get being a dev is hard, but please, Jesus, listen to your fans sometimes. That's all what I've heard, because again, I didn't play the entire game, I didn't play through everything, but I've heard that it has a great development team, which is awesome. I love to hear that. I honestly think I would have enjoyed it more if I got into it a little later, or if I stuck through to see more of the story, because my friends who did play it seemed to really enjoy it. It just wasn't really the gameplay style for me, because like I said, I don't like grinding to grind more. I'm okay to grind a bit in a game, but I want to see something actually come out of it. The only grindy game I can kind of think of me playing is Pokemon, which I don't know why that's different for me. Like, I guess at least I grind to be higher level to beat new enemies and to get through the story, and I'm out there evolving my Pokemon and stuff. I don't know, it's different for me somehow. I enjoy it. Wow, I have not talked about Soulframe once. My bad. Well, actually script writing me is bad, which is interesting because he actually put this whole speech in the script. Anyway, whether or not you enjoy games like Warframe, Soulframe looks absolutely amazing. I can't super tell because what we've seen takes place in a bunch of different locations and stuff because, you know, the devs can't show off everything, but it is an open world, and I'm hoping that means fully open world. Not a hub with like explorable regions you go to and from. I mean open world like I can actually walk from one end to the other and encounter different enemies and such along my travels. Sorry if I'm sounding pessimistic, I'm just really hyped for this game, which means that I'm just as worried for this game. You can actually play this game in co-op, which I love, but I think this is technically an MMORPG still, but I'm assuming it'll be similar to Warframe in the sense that you can play through areas in co-op and there will be special areas or like hubs with larger amounts of people. I think that's how Warframe was, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of hard to tell because we've only seen the co-op gameplay in the videos they've released, but that's my best guess. Something I cannot get over in Soulframe is the visuals and the setting for this game. That's honestly what I'm looking forward to the most, and kind of just hoping for the best with everything else. It takes clear inspiration from Princess Mononoke, which I actually watched recently and I loved it. Definitely pretty high up there in my favorite movies. And it's kind of funny just how much inspiration they actually take with the crazy arm and riding on a big wolf and protecting the guardians of the lands and whatnot. But honestly, I love all that stuff, so I don't mind as long as it's well known or obvious that it takes this movie as inspiration. If there's anything I hope gets used for inspiration, it's the world building. Studio Ghibli movies always do that insanely well, in my opinion. They never fail to make a world that's intriguing, and although like hardly ever explained, it still just works and makes perfect sense. Even if something does not make any sense, it just feels right. It feels like it fits within the world that they've built up for the movie, and I think that's awesome. That's like, I love world building and designing worlds and creatures and like stories and stuff, and it's just really cool. If they take any inspiration from that would be great. I think that they're on the right track for a really good game. So far, the story in Soulframe seems like one I could really get invested in. You're one of the last of your people and you're trying to free their souls to kind of rebuild the village in this like spirit realm, while also protecting the beast guardians of the land, or omen beasts, using these crazy ass abilities against very cool looking enemies. There's a super long gameplay video that I'll link down in the description below, and it's honestly awesome. Like, it shows off so much of the world and it's genuinely so beautiful. The things that you see, like, I can yap about creature design all day. It looks really, really good. Something I'm very curious about though is the procedurally generated areas. I'm not sure how Warframe was, if it was procedurally generated or if they made all the levels, but procedurally generated in my eyes generally means less story things placed there, less intentional things in the dungeons, which kind of sucks. But if they can make it work, if they can make it tie in, then like if the quests and stuff are done through items and things like that, maybe it'll be okay. I'm very worried for it, but I'm so hyped. The boss fights seem like they're going to be super cool, but I am again worried about the grinding. It's very cool at first. I really hope I'm not going to have to fight one of these people 20 times just to get a rare item that is going to help me get a new skin or something, or help me directly fight the next boss and then I have to fight them 20 times, and I don't want to do all that. I just want to play through the game in co-op, which is awesome. That's actually really cool. I feel like with all the other games that are coming out, a co-op game could be really fun. So a lot of these games I'm going to end up playing by myself, but jumping into a co-op game like this sounds like it could make for a really fun experience. But yeah, that's gonna be just about it for these games. I am so hyped for all of them, but let me know what game you guys are most excited for down in the comments below. Any other games besides these that you guys are excited for that you might want me to cover, let me know. There's just so many cool things coming out soon. It is biggest hype hours. And I know my hype for these games has affected the channel a little bit. I used to only post FNAF stuff, which got me a really long way on the channel, and I super appreciate that. But like I've been saying in these past videos, I'm trying to branch out a little more. I still want to do some FNAF stuff. I do have some stuff coming up, and I did just talk about the new upcoming game, Into the Pit. If you don't know what that is, looks like a really cool pixel game. I feel like you'll really enjoy it if you're a FNAF fan, but even if you're not, it might just be a cool pixel horror game. I'll have that linked down in the description below and on a card somewhere, wherever cards go now. Yeah, anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for more, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.